The poem I'm going to present on is called Go Down Death by James Weldon Johnson. This is the last picture that I took with my mom. This was taken May 14th, 2016 at my high school graduation. My mom passed away on June 29th that same year. The death of a parent is an incredibly difficult thing to cope with. My mom had been sick for a long time, so when she passed away, none of us were really that surprised. Although the news of her death did initially come as a shock. Nobody was expecting it to happen this soon. After hearing of her death, a feeling of relief did wash over me, but not a relief because she was dead. It was a relief because we knew that she wasn't suffering anymore. The poem Go Down Death was one of the things that brought me great comfort in the midst of my grief. This was the same poem that I read at her funeral. I'm going to read it here for you guys. Weep not, she is not dead. She's resting in the bosom of Jesus. Heartbroken husband, weep no more. Grief-stricken son, weep no more. Left lonesome daughter, weep no more. She's only just gone home. Day before yesterday morning, God was looking down from his great high heaven, looking down on all his children, and his eye fell on Sister Caroline, tossing on her bed of pain, and God's big heart was touched with pity, with the everlasting pity. And God sat back on his throne, and he commanded that tall, bright angel standing at his right hand, "Call me Death." And that tall, bright angel cried in a voice that broke like a clap of thunder, "Call Death, call Death." And the echo sounded down the streets of heaven, till it reached back to that shadowy place, where Death waits with his pale white horses. And Death heard the summons, and he leaped on his fastest horse, pale as a sheet in the moonlight. Up the golden street Death galloped, and the hooves of his horse struck fire from the gold. But they didn't make a sound. Up Death rode to the great white throne, and waited for God's command. And God said, "Go down, Death, go down. Go down to Savannah, Georgia, down in Yamacraw, and find Sister Caroline. She's borne the burden and heat of the day. She's labored in my long vineyard. She's tired. She is weary. Go down, Death, and bring her to me." And Death didn't say a word, but he loosened the reins on his pale white horse, and he clamped the spurs to his bloodless sides, and out and down he rode, through heaven's pearly gates, past suns and moons and stars, on Death rode, leaving the lightning's flash behind. Straight down he came. While we were watching round her bed, she turned her eyes and looked away. She saw what we couldn't see. She saw Old Death. She saw Old Death coming like a falling star. But Death didn't frighten Sister Caroline. He looked to her like a welcome friend, and she whispered to us, "I'm going home." And she smiled and closed her eyes. And Death took her up like a baby, and she lay in his icy arms. But she didn't feel a chill, and Death began to ride again, up beyond the evening star, into the glittering light of glory, onto the great white throne, and there he laid Sister Caroline, on the loving breast of Jesus. And Jesus took his own hand and wiped away her tears, and he smoothed the furrows from her face. And the angels sang a little song, and Jesus rocked her in his arms and kept a saying, "Take your rest, take your rest. Weep not, she is not dead. She is resting in the bosom of Jesus." His poem is oftentimes referred to as the funeral sermon for very obvious reasons. It's an account of the death of a woman named Caroline, who in the first stanza it is said, for her loved ones that they shouldn't cry, for she hasn't died, she's just been sent home. God called her home because he was in pain. Because she was in pain. She was suffering. The author doesn't portray death as a scary end. He doesn't even portray physical death as an end at all, but rather as a conduit for eternal life. Death only does what God commands of it. In the 4th stanza, it says that when death heard the summons, he leaped on his fastest horse, and he rode all the way up to God, and he waited for God's command. The visual of death on a pale horse, it corresponds with what it says about death in Revelations chapter 6, verse 7, that death is on a pale horse and bends to the command of God. This June will be 3 years since my mom has passed away. And I'm allowed to be sad that my mom's gone, but not sad that she is gone. I get to be sad that she's not going to be there to see my wedding or when I graduate from college. I'm not afraid of death. My mom was sick, and death was the ultimate end to her suffering. If anything, I can be thankful that death was there to save her, that God was there to call her home. She was tired, and she was weary, and it was just time for her to go home to be with Jesus.